narcissism. Liberals are so stupid the way that they handle Trump.
What do you mean?
You should shut up. He's a narcissist.
Jimmy Kimmel has increasingly become the center of jokes on his own show, with moments where even those close to him seem willing to take shots at his expense, creating an unexpectedly funny dynamic that raises questions about how much support he really has in the industry. What makes it more interesting is how the humor often turns back on him in real time, especially given his association with woke culture, making the whole situation feel like a self-inflicted roast. Bill Burr, in particular, delivers one of the sharpest and most fearless jabs in the clip, pushing the moment fully into roast territory.
Narcissists, sociopaths, all of this type of stuff. Like, you want to see a great case thing on, like, narcissism. Liberals are so stupid the way that they handle Trump.
What do you mean?
You should shut up. He's a narcissist. Neutral energy.
Yeah. You think he'd go away if
You know what I think he was? I think he was a one-hit wonder. Right? He wrote the twist. And then that was it. He was on the casino circuit, and then you idiot liberals wrote him twist again when you indicted him. And now he's a martyr. And now he's coming back, Jimmy.
The peppermint twist is
back. He's coming back.
I'm not pretending Bill Burr is secretly some hidden Trump supporter or anything like that. He's openly on the left and doesn't hide it. But every now and then, even someone firmly in that camp can point out something uncomfortable that others avoid saying out loud. What he highlights is how Trump was, in part, amplified by constant opposition and media focus, turning him into an even bigger-than-life political figure. The non-stop effort from critics to take him down only seemed to keep him at the center of attention, with every controversy, indictment, and headline adding more visibility rather than reducing it. Instead of slowing his momentum, it arguably kept him dominating the conversation far more than Kamala Harris, ultimately reinforcing his status as a political force that stayed impossible to ignore.
I believe like these are honestly going to be our two choices, because I really try to, with each thing, to try to be like, figure out who I'm going to, but I mean, it's got to be, I want somebody in their 40s, somebody that's going to have to live with their decisions. I don't want like, with any luck, they'll both die of natural causes. And maybe you could get somebody that still has something to live for.
Wow.
Bill Burr, as a comedian generally associated with left-leaning views, still didn't present a clean or predictable stance when the conversation drifted toward Trump and Harris, and that lack of a straightforward answer stood out more than the joke itself. What seemed on the surface like a simple bit about both candidates being old also carried a sharper edge, touching on broader dissatisfaction with the political landscape as a whole, including Biden-era policies and the direction of mainstream politics. Rather than landing on a clear endorsement or rejection, his approach came across as intentionally messy and comedic, reflecting a more general sense of frustration and fatigue with both sides that many viewers interpreted in different ways.
Wait a minute.
He means no harm.
How long have you been wearing suits? You're supposed to unbutton the coat when you sit down.
No, that's not true.
Bugging me the whole time.
All right, I'll unbutton everything. More with Bill Burr after this. We'll be
Jimmy Kimmel appeared a bit uneasy as Bill Burr began steering the conversation in an unexpected direction that didn't fully match the usual late-night rhythm. There were moments of visible shifting in his posture and attempts to steer things along, as if anticipating a more familiar style of comedy that aligns with standard political jokes. However, Burr instead leaned into a more unpredictable, critical style of humor that didn't strictly follow the expected narrative. That contrast created an awkward but interesting dynamic on stage, with Kimmel seeming to manage the tension in real time while Burr continued delivering his commentary without adjusting his approach to fit the usual format.
Saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
There have been recurring narratives online about late-night shows struggling, often framed around ratings, controversy, and changing audience habits, but it's important to separate speculation from actual network decisions. In reality, Jimmy Kimmel is still hosting his show, and discussions about collapse or networks cutting ties tend to reflect commentary rather than confirmed outcomes. What is more broadly true is that television remains a business driven heavily by viewership and advertising revenue, and late-night formats across the board have faced pressure as audiences fragment and move toward streaming and short-form content. In that environment, debates often arise about whether political humor helps or hurts ratings, But the bigger picture is usually more about shifting media consumption than any single personality or storyline driving a show's fate.
Complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. This is precisely the kind of government coercion that the First Amendment was designed to prevent, and media companies need to start standing up rather than capitulating to it.
Barack Obama's comments about cancel culture have been interpreted in different ways, largely because he is addressing it more openly now than during its earlier rise. At the time when debates around cancel culture were most intense, he was generally not directly involved in those disputes, instead focusing on broader issues like political division and democratic norms. In his more recent remarks, he has framed the topic around concerns about social media pile-ons, overreaction, and the need for healthier public discourse. Supporters view this as an acknowledgement of how online culture has evolved, while critics see it as a selective or delayed critique depending on the political context in which it is raised.
Jimmy Kimmel thought he was bigger than Disney, bigger than Mickey Mouse. Charlie Kirk's body isn't even buried, and ABC affiliates are refusing to air his show. They're on the brink of an advertiser boycott, and this guy's not even in first place. And he says, let's go another round. So the boss said, take a breather, Jimmy. You're costing us a fortune and making us look like we don't have a conscience.
Over time, Jimmy Kimmel's monologues have often leaned heavily into political commentary, especially around Trump and MAGA, and that shift has been a frequent talking point among viewers who prefer more traditional late-night comedy. Critics argue that this kind of focus can feel repetitive or polarizing, while supporters see it as reflective of the current political climate and a legitimate part of satire. At the same time, late-night television as a whole has been changing, with audiences fragmenting and moving towards streaming and shorter-form content, which has affected nearly every major host. Within that broader context, debates about going too far or losing audiences are usually less about a single moment and more about long-term changes in viewing habits and expectations.
It's not about free speech. This is about the free market. On free speech, Jimmy Kimmel isn't losing his ability to speak out and say whatever the heck he wants. He could run the Substack just like his friends Don Lemon, Jim Acosta, Joy Reid, Chuck Todd, and say whatever's on his mind there. The difference is he's not going to get paid $15, $16 million a year from Disney and ABC to do it. I mean, here's the thing. This was a last straw moment for Disney, ABC, the affiliates Nexstar, and Sinclair.
Jimmy Kimmel's shift toward more politically focused comedy is often seen in different ways depending on the viewer, with some appreciating it as sharp satire of current events while others feel it narrows the appeal of his show compared to more traditional late-night entertainment. Like many hosts in the same space, he has been operating in an environment where late-night television is under pressure from declining cable viewership and growing competition from streaming platforms and short-form content. Because of that broader shift, discussions about audience loss or creative direction are usually tied not just to political content, but to larger changes in how people consume media overall and what they expect from the format today.
This screaming about the First Amendment and free speech is driving me crazy. People seem to think that the First Amendment allows every individual to say whatever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. That's not what the First Amendment does. What the First Amendment does is provides that Congress can make no law to prohibit you from speaking. It does not say that you can't get fired for saying some stupid stuff. Right? It does not say that. And so Jimmy Kimmel, as you've said, has not been silenced. This is not.
The First Amendment protects people from government censorship, not consequences from private companies like TV networks or sponsors, which can make decisions based on ratings, revenue, and brand direction. In late-night TV, changes in audience habits, streaming competition, and overall declining cable viewership play a much bigger role than any single political stance or moment.